Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Blockchain and Beyond. Today is a episode on a project called Ricochet, which is a dollar cost averaging exchange using some technologies. I did have some technical difficulties while recording this, but I've hopefully cut out some of the parts. If you're watching on YouTube, the video quality will be a bit reduced because I just had some technical problems with my camera and my phone. Um, but yeah, let's get into it.
I'm Sero. I am a front end developer and community manager at Ricochet Exchange. I've been working in tech, I suppose, for the last 3 years, mostly self taught. And I've had a big passion for this stuff ever since I saw the amount of people it can help and how it connects everybody seamlessly. How there's nobody like gatekeeping access to apps. So that's what motivates me to stay in this space. And I also do a podcast as well, talking about this stuff. So yeah, that's what keeps me interested in this.
Cool. And yeah, so I'm Mike. I live in Philadelphia, and I basically have been doing like decentralized financial technology for the last 3 years. And prior to that, I was mining crypto. Um, and yeah, so that's pretty much my background doing computer engineering. Um, I attended Pennsylvania State University here, and I also run at in Philadelphia a crypto meetup called DeFi Philly, and we meet regularly for decentralized finance, networking events, and things like that.
Cool, yeah. I mean that's awesome sounds. So you both kind of have a background and I guess sort of a passion in, this sort of stuff. Um yeah, I guess that mainly covers it. So I guess we can jump into the stuff that you're doing. So you both currently work for Ricochet Exchange. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we basically contribute to the Ricochet
Mm-hmm.
Exchange project,
Yeah.
right? So, we're both basically contributors. It was a project that was created at a hackathon, right? So, that's pretty much our affiliation with it. And, we're basically one of, maybe like 40 people that have made contributions, though, we make the most
Yeah.
we make most of the contributions and we keep the project alive.
Cool. So for people who might not be aware, what is Ricochet? What do they do? And yeah, where do you guys also fit into that?
I think we both kind of have to answer this a bit differently,
Okay.
since we come from different perspectives. But for me, Ricochet is a dollar cost averaging tool that lets you automate your investments. And we do this on a very, very granular level. So we're doing these automated purchases on a like very, very often throughout the day. So that's what the project is. There's a lot of other things around it, but I feel like that's really the heart and soul of what Ricochet does. Um, yeah, that's what I think it is.
Yeah, and I would add that like Ricochet Exchange technology, like the protocol itself, is just very efficient when it comes to the gas used to do dollar cost averaging at scale. And it's also very because of the way that we chunk the purchases into 15-minute, like very small increments. You save on slippage because you're not doing such a large trade, and then of course you're sort of getting a more average cost because you're basically following the line every 15 minutes as opposed to every so often. So that's the other part about Ricochet is like some of the things that we do as far as moving funds around. The protocol is using a technology called Superfluid, and that allows us to more efficiently do dollar cost averaging and scale it to millions of people could be doing it on chain using the Ricochet protocol. So
Yeah, I think there's a few points that I probably want to touch on before we go into Superfluid. I guess the first one is the batching of transactions, right? So I guess the traditional problem with dollar cost averaging is that there's a lot of transactions happening every so often, and
yeah.
the more often you want to purchase, if you want to purchase say 4 times a day or 10 times a day, those transactions eventually all add up, and with things like gas fees that can actually be quite a problem, become a problem, especially when you want to account for how much you're spending on gas versus how much you're actually getting as an output. And I guess where Ricochet kind of comes in is it kind of aggregates everyone's investments or purchases, and then executes these throughout the day, right? So there could be, 100 people wanting $2 cost average, but all of these transactions are effectively batched together. So there's only one transaction going through the network, which is one minimizing on gas fees, and minimizing, as you said, on slippage as well, because these transactions are happening, super often.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's basically like this this concept that you're gonna have to execute transactions for thousands and thousands of people, millions and millions of people. Well, there's just not enough block space to do that. Like a daily dollar cost averaging for a million people.
Mm-hmm.
That's you're talking about a million transactions a day. But with our method, it doesn't matter if it's 10 users doing dollar cost averaging or a million. It's the same fixed fee to run the 15-minute
Mm-hmm.
increments. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the platform also, allows people to invest in, I guess, quite a lot of different assets as well. So it's not just, Bitcoin and Ethereum. They can also choose a variety of kind of source assets as well. So whether that's USDC or Matic, it gives people a lot of options on what they actually invest in. So it gives people that sort of flexibility to kind of do it their way without having to, be pigeonholed into picking one or the other.
Yeah, so there's three tokens that we support. Like we support Wrapped Bitcoin, Wrapped Ethereum on Polygon and Matic. And then as far as inputs, or like on the stablecoin side, pairings we have DAI and USDC. So a lot of people in the ecosystem are being, Superfluid is its own ecosystem of people streaming money around, and a lot of that is salaries being streamed. So those are the main asset. Those are the main tokens that I think people want to get.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think we cover very fair grounds in terms of what we currently provide as tokens on our platform. Um, Mostly, like I wouldn't say anything is risk free, but we mostly support things that have been around for a long time and are very valued by people. And we hope that we give people enough choice with their investments, because right now, if you are somebody in the Superfluid ecosystem and you are getting a stream or you're interested in this technology, it doesn't hurt to just set aside a percentage of your income and invest it into different assets that might become useful later on. Especially when we're talking about things like ETH and Matic, where you need that as gas to do things on these networks. So I hope. What do you think about the token lists that we support for Zun?
Yeah, no, I think the token list definitely, accommodates for the most popular, the most demanded tokens, and I guess there is sort of expansion going on, right? So you have the opportunity to actually invest into LPs with with uh, with Ricochet with the tokens you pick. So you can kind of use that to get exposure to different assets, and as you said, not everything is risk free, but you try to accommodate the most popular, the most demanded assets within the ecosystem, which I think is probably the right step. And it's probably a lot safer to go slower when adding new assets rather than going too quick, where you could probably run into a lot of problems if you pick up a project which doesn't go well, which might be a rug, or faces some other issues. It sort of prevents a lot of those problems from arising.
We did list like two smaller cap tokens. We listed Idle and Maker, and because at the time we were like doing collaborations with them. But like at the end of the day, what ended up happening was there just wasn't enough demand to support the markets there. We could turn down the frequency and like only do distributions every day or only do distributions every so often. And then that kind of like tunes the cost of what it is to run a market. But there was just very little volume for those pairings. And then the other thing is like moving forward, it's not like the customer doesn't really want to hold just spot anything. They don't. No, nobody wants to hold just something that doesn't earn yield.
Mhm.
So yeah, even if even if it's not streaming into a liquidity pool per se, with your where you're pairing assets together, even just streaming into like yield bearing versions of the ETH and that Bitcoin, um, and being able to stream your stable coins in, or just like hold your stack of stable coins in a yield bearing instrument
Mhm.
as you stream it out, so that
Yeah.
that stack is still earning interest up until the moment it gets swapped for something else that's earning interest.
Mhm.
um, so yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the technology behind Ricochet is Superfluid, and for someone
Right.
who's never heard of Superfluid, what would you sort of describe it as?
I could take it. I could take a shot at that. I mean, the headline for Superfluid is like streaming money,
Mhm.
and then the next logical question was, what does it mean to stream money? And really, what the answer to that is that money is credited to the receiver on the per second basis. So every second you're getting a certain amount of money that's available to you to withdraw. Um, and then a more technical way I explain it is it's like opening state channels for streaming funds, which
Mhm.
says you do one transaction that opens up a state channel that says I'm willing to send you at a certain rate every 100 units per second, starting now, right? And then what anyone can observe that state channel to figure out whose balance, like what's the current balance of the both accounts. And then when that state channel is like closed, you don't need it anymore, and it just like you
Mhm.
can you're done. So that's what I would explain Superfluid as. It also and then another thing is it also adds some extensions onto tokens that support moving them around in a more gas efficient way. And what that technically how that's done, as far as I understand it, is it's kind of like a rebasing mechanism for when you're sending funds out, you sort of like rebase, make do a rebase operation, and at that point you can basically change the balances of lots of different
Mhm.
people, by doing a rebasing operation as opposed to doing a ERC20 transfer operation. So so that's all
Oh,
Superfluid. That's all packed in Superfluid. And sure, if you want to add some stuff.
yeah, I want to like talk about maybe the consumer side a little bit.
Mhm.
One very important thing is that you don't have to like you're only spending what you use in terms of streaming. Like if you only want to invest for like 6 hours, that's all you have to invest for. You don't have to give any more or less than what you actually want to put in. And you have a lot more control both as somebody that is opening a stream to somebody else. Say you're an employer and you have some employees. Um, Traditionally, like what are you going to do with payments? Are you going to pay them before they do work, after they do work? Are you going to break that into multiple times a week where you have to spend all this time doing things that are pretty unnecessary? I feel like streaming from the user perspective solves a lot of those problems because we get in an agreement, we open streams for work. As long as we're doing work, we're receiving our money, we're being credited on a second per second basis. You don't have to wait 2 weeks or whatever. So that's like the underlying technology from the consumer and user perspective. But I don't necessarily think we're all just super fluid, though. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts both on the back end and the front end in our application that we have to give credit for, like Teller and obviously a lot of the custom work that we've done. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So that is sort of what I was trying to get at, especially a bit more on the consumer side. So it's you start a new job, your employer opens up a stream to your wallet where you're getting paid say 2,000 USDC every month, and you can see your balance effectively tick up every second. You will see it go up second by second. So if there was something that you wanted to spend it on, you could spend it as soon as you get the money, rather than having to wait 2 weeks or a month to actually get your salary. And that can potentially help solve a lot of problems because people have bills to pay. Sometimes your bill cycles don't align up. You may have additional spending that you need to do, right? If you have some sort of an emergency. And I think that having your income streamed to you in real time can help alleviate a lot of these problems that people are facing. Um,
One thing where I
Yeah.
feel like Ricochet really shines is that say you are getting that stream, like we said, you don't have to wait until you start investing. We all know that if you start investing earlier, you will be making much more money later on, because of how like compound interest happens. And um, if you are able to start investing some of your income as soon as you start working, you might be able to make your way out of like, like
Hmm.
maneuver yourself into a position of having more money um, earlier on than having to wait until those bill cycles come and all your money disappears. So that's what we're really trying to solve for, because I wanted to like phrase that well, so we get that point out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's, I guess, sort of enabling people to make perhaps better financial decisions, aside from traditional ways of doing it, where you may not have enough to put aside. You can kind of put aside money as you go, and if your circumstances do change, you can obviously adjust for that. But this lets you do it in sort of real time, which is, I think, the real thing. And Ricochet is sort of innovation upon the Superfluid protocol, which is quite big itself. And the this case of dollar cost averaging, I've dealt with a little bit, so I've built my own systems, mostly using exchanges where I've had to use their APIs to actually build a system that would dollar cost for me, because the systems within centralized exchanges, so for example Coinbase will let you dollar cost average every week or every month, but that time frame isn't something I wanted, right? That was too long for me. I wanted to do it multiple times a day, and exchanges that were supporting that were charging sort of like extortionate fees, or like very high fees compared to what I was able to invest at the time. So if Ricochet was around when I had sort of started that, that would have been an option for me to actually do as much as I could for that month or for that week or whatever, and actually help me sort of balance out my income with how much I'm investing and so on. So that's when I reached out to you guys, that's sort of why I mentioned that this is a project that I've really interested in, because I've looked into it a bit. I've had to build my own system separately around what I wanted to do, but I can definitely see where you guys are sort of heading with this. um cool. So I saw on your website you've building out some things to do with, I believe, ICOs. Would either of you want to speak a bit more on that, or is that something that's still half and half?
No, I mean basically, so like what we have here again in the protocol is like it's I mean, yeah, you could use it for ICOs. The tool itself is the mechanic around the tool itself is about distributing tokens,
Mhm.
and the method that it uses has like a price discovery mechanic. So like right now, price discovery is done on liquidity pools where people trade back and forth to get a price, right? And that's just one mechanism of doing it, where the price is just whatever the last trade was. With our stream exchange that does, they call it the launch pad. With the launch pad contract, what ends up happening is the price is set based on the stream rates and the emission rate. So if you create a launch pad contract, you put 1,000 tokens in there, and you're going to distribute one token a day for 1,000 days. What happens is people can compete for that one token per day using a stream. So you can go on the app. We have a live demo of this, and you can see that the token price ends up getting set based on the input stream and
Mhm.
the output emission. So it's just how many tokens are coming out divided by how many tokens are going in, and that sets a price. And the nice thing about that is that that price is based on subscribers, right? So as people subscribe to get some of the tokens, they say how much are they willing to pay per month is how we denominate it. And so yeah, right. So it's a different price discovery mechanic. It's a different way of distributing tokens. And in a lot of ways, it's better because of the whole. It basically bypasses any kind of minor extractable value.
Mhm.
There is no minor extractable value in this method because of the emission. Um, and yeah, so it's also a little bit more gas efficient. You can just start buying the token. You don't have to get into these gas races to try to get the most of it, like faster than whoever else is trying to get it once it ICOs or once it drops into a liquidity pool. So yeah, it's that's that the ICO
Yeah.
product.
Cool. No, no, it's definitely, innovating on, traditional ways of actually carrying out ICOs. And, I think as soon as more projects find out that, hey, this is a new way of trying it, or, it could be better for, supporting the people who want to, support our project, I think people will definitely be picking up on it.
And the other nice thing about it is, and this is something that, obviously the more I think about, the more great things I'm gonna come up with. But the other great thing about it is the fundraising mechanic is not lump sum fundraising. So if you did want to use the system to raise funds, then you're doing it through a subscription, which is basically like loyal fans believe in you, and they're willing to subscribe. So in essence, like I kind of laugh at the ICO thing because, like, yes, that's one thing you could do with it, but also, there's other, other things that it could be used for. And yeah, the subscription fundraising is like, one way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So this was a question that I sort of had, right? So the purchases, through your platform, they happen every so often. How are these actually like executed? Do you have a script which is running on a server somewhere, which is running every, so often, or is there a way to actually decentralize this
Yeah.
whole execution?
Yeah, so we did have it. It was basically a script running on servers.
Hmm.
The only thing decentralized about it is there's like four of us running the script,
Yeah.
but now it uses Gelato.
Yep.
So basically, what happens is someone has to just fill up a Gelato account to trigger it,
Hmm.
which the DAO does. And basically, the solution to all this is to create some kind of like incentive for people to trigger the distribution, the swap in the distribution. And that kind of incentive would be basically splitting some of the fees. So, after a certain point, enough funds would accrue into the contract that it would make sense for somebody to pay the gas and collect maybe a 10% fee on the fee that's taken. So if we take a 2% fee, maybe they get 0.2% of the fee,
Yeah.
right? And that I think is a sustainable model. Though I don't know if our volume supports that yet. I don't know if it makes sense. Like our 15-minute distribution, we have, I think, some markets that don't cover the cost of that,
Hmm.
but then we have other markets that more than cover the cost of it. So I think we're on the net as far as gas spend, but I don't really look too deep into it
Yeah.
actually.
No, no,
Maybe I
no.
should.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
because I was just interested, right? So I guess Gelato is a platform which helps the execution of smart contracts when you need them. By I'm presuming they have their own distributed network to
Yeah.
help the
Yeah, they
execution of
have like
this.
That's right.
they automate it through bots, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Yeah, so
They have a whole
they
network.
automate the. Yeah, they have something pretty cool going on.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned the Ricochet DAO, as in the people who set up the gelato. Is there ideas for a DAO to help take this project forward in the future? Is that something that's maybe in the works, or?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at the DAO is it's structured to put on top of this open source software system that's being operated. At this point, the contracts are there on the
Yeah.
app, right? So it's really just a matter of like, okay, someone's got to run a front end so that people could use it.
Mhm.
So the DAO is really the organization, like the lightest of organizations that could be set up just to make sure that it's sustainable and like the keeps the lights on.
Mhm.
And yeah, those are the people in the DAO are basically the people who keep the lights on at Ricochet, and keep the whole thing going. So
Yeah, cool. And there's a Ricochet token as well, I believe. What's the plans for that? Is there any utility being built in, or what's the?
yeah, I mean
With the
the main utility is that you can vote with it, right? And
Mhm.
we have a treasury, and so there's decisions to be made about what do we do with the funds in there. The other thing is the token gives you access to private channels in Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the development conversation at this point happens behind those channels. And then in the future, I imagine that one of the ways that we would incentivize keepers to sort of keep triggering would be with the token. And then as far as what happens to protocol fees, those will be used to buy back the token and give it to the people who work on the project. Basically, those open source contributors will get paid with tokens that are bought back from whoever was willing to sell them back. So
I also wanted to chime in here because one of the visions that I see moving forward, one of your questions was the like, what are we going to be working on in the future? And I believe a great use of tokens is to gate new content, new features, gate like special like time setting times and auto downgrading your tokens after you stream them. So by gating content behind these tokens, we incentivize the community to contribute towards the building of these features. And I think that's ultimately where I want to see it going. But again, it's right now. It's just it's in its early phases. So I think really what we're doing it with it now is just fun, governance.
yeah.
Cool.
And the main impetus behind the creation of the token was one, security for the project, because if we don't make a token, someone will just come along and do the same thing and make a token. And then also it's just really good marketing, like having a token and just giving out tokens, even completely valueless. We have no plan for what to do with this. You know, it's kind of like a business card. It's kind of like handing out business cards, and it gives people something fun to do within the app. To do it. So because we also will give you the people who use Ricochet, most of the tokens were distributed by passing them out to people using the product, using the protocol, so that they could feel like they have a piece of Ricochet in their wallet.
Yeah. Cool. I guess last big one from me is, so Superfluid is expanding to different chains. So I believe they've also supporting BNB now, which is the Binance Smart Chain. Is there plans for Ricochet to follow in its footsteps and expand?
Yeah, so I'm currently in the process of making that happen, although it's pretty slow because we depend on more than just Superfluid to run our project. And that means that if we want to move on to a new chain, we have to get those companies also to move on to new, or those DAOs to move on to new chains as well. But there's a lot of value in doing that. Yeah, exposure to new people, different crowds, and just helping the community in general. So that is definitely on our list of things to do in the near future.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. Because there's assets on all chains that people who are definitely interested in. I mean, the big ones will primarily be either stable coins, wrapped BTC and wrapped ETH, and potentially some other stable coins as well. And there's a lot of, I guess, liquidity which is split among these different chains. So I guess just making it accessible to more people will benefit everyone overall. Um, yeah, and I think you guys have sort of answered all of my questions. So unless you guys have much else to add, I think we can probably start to wrap up, and it will be cool for everyone to know where they can find you guys, whether that's on Twitter or anywhere else.
We're on Twitter, so our handle is Ricochet Exchange, but so it's spelled pretty weird. There's no E before the X in exchange, so Ricochet X Change. And our website is ricochet.exchange. We are on a lot of different platforms, but mainly you would find us on Discord, Twitter, and on our website and in our app. Um, yeah, anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, that sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Find us online.
Feel free to plug your personal Twitters as well if you're so interested.
Thanks.
So I have a podcast, DeFi Talks. Hopefully, I can get you on there, Farzan.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have you. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to shout out. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. In